Hello, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to cover how I'm painting the shields for the Etruscan hoplites that hopefully some of you have followed me painting. You'll see them in the background here. There's been a few videos about how I've got them to this stage. The final stage is to get the shields painted in appropriate designs. We'll be using a mixture of techniques and I'll show you a little bit more about that later. The key thing about this video is that I hope to show you some techniques that mean you don't have to be an artist to get some really good results. And I'm going to be mixing shield transfers, freehand painting and all sorts of other things that hopefully you'll find interesting. But the important bit is to start with a bit of prep. So I've got the shields back out from the box, as it were. I put these to one side after we got the figures underway. They've been partially prepped in that I've filed off any sort of additional mould lines and flash. I washed them off in the same way that I did the figures, and I've put an undercoat on the rear side. What you'll also see is that I've started to put them on these little sticks. Now these are what are called tongue depressors, which are effectively a large lolly stick. What I've done is cut them in half, or break them in half, just roughly. And these are quite convenient to sort of pick up and turn around, but actually it's easy to lose sight of whereabouts the position of the figure. The position the shield is in relation to the model. So I tend to put these little up arrows on the actual stick itself so that I don't lose track of where we are. And I've taken a piece of blue tack and I'm just putting it into the shield. Now bear in mind what we've got here, just to explain. I'll get a pointer. Let's use this one. Is we've got the inside of the shield being modelled. So if you think about it, the figure's arm is going to go from back to front. So this would, on the original, have been a corded arrangement, but on this figure we want to make sure that we can put the arm in this location here. So this will be the front of the shield, and therefore when we place it onto the stick we want to make sure that it's in the right orientation. So of this one with the blue tack on, we're just going to make sure that we align it like that, so that we've got it ready to go. Now, I tend to use blue tack, not all the time, but I just find it quite easy to keep track. It helps keep the shield in place, helps me keep things nice and organised. And in a minute we're going to go and paint over the top of this with a black undercoat, and again it just keeps it proud of that surface so that we don't get any nasty sort of pooling around the edges. I'm sure there's other ways you can do it. I just find blue tack quite useful, and it helps, as I say, to prevent any mistakes. There's nothing worse than painting a really nice design, turning the shield over and realising that you've got it completely the wrong way around. So I'm going to just run round finishing off the prep, and then hopefully we'll start to make some real progress. See you soon. Okay, so where do we begin? Well, we begin with most things in terms of research. So I've grabbed myself some books. I've gone through just a selection of the information that I have. I've gone into these books and I've checked out some of the shield patterns. One thing I think I mentioned earlier was that the Etruscans were known for this sort of red background, and I think in this early Roman book you've got the sort of general impression of what we mean. So here we've got a traditional hoplite shield with a red background and then a white horse in this particular case, or this face here. So the size of the red disc varies a little bit. This one seems a little bit smaller than that one, and this is obviously just the artist's impression. And sorry if it's getting a bit of that's probably a better view on the camera. But we're going to mix some of that, and we're going to take some influences from the Greek type symbols that we see on some of these other hoplite shields. We're also going to consider this section up here, which is a rendering of some of the Italite shields that perhaps were used by lower class warriors, where we've got more of a plain coloration. In my own head, the more elite troops of the Etruscans tended to use a hoplite type shield, certainly in the early period, whereas obviously we've got plenty of other renderings in here, whereas the lower class warriors tended to use more, should we say, functional shields rather than decorative. So what I've done is I've gone through these books that I've used as a bit of reference, and I've photocopied a few sections. So this is the Greek section I showed you earlier. That's the guy on the chariot. This section in particular was what I could find in terms of pure Etruscan shields. So we've got the inner red, we've got the white device, but you'll notice that we've got, because they were under heavy Greek influence, we've got some of the sort of shapes that were consistent across the Mediterranean, for want of a better phrase. So I think it's perfectly fine for us to mix some of these styles together. As long as we put enough in it to suggest that it's Etruscan, I think we'll be okay. I've also found some old spare transfers that I'm going to throw into the mix. And I'll probably alter some of these, or maybe use them in part. These ones probably for the lower class shields. These were from Samnites, so I think it's perfectly reasonable that they get used as well. I found these here, which is I think some medieval heraldry, but it's some kind of fish, and certainly on some of the shields that I've seen for Greeks, those were symbols that were used as well. But effectively, the basic principle I work to, because I'm not an artist, is I like to try and make life easy for myself. So I take the shield, and what I'm going to be doing once they're prepped with white is I'm going to be marking on some of the key points. So if I take something like this, well, anything actually, from something like this cup or this trophy to you know, a bird, what I'll be doing is I'll be putting little dots in the areas that reflect the proportion that we're looking for. So if I look at the shield and I say, right, well, that's the midpoint, and this is the top point of the wing, I'm going to be putting that on my own little shield in a sort of scaled way. And to be honest, that's the only way that personally I can make it work. I would struggle to draw this freehand, and certainly to get the position right on the shield, it's probably a non-starter for me. But we'll see how we get on, and actually sometimes if it goes completely wrong I will modify it. But what I want is I want the plan. As I said, I've got 22 shields to do. Roughly 8 of those are the lower class sort of shields. They're probably the ones I'm going to target maybe for some of those transfers that I showed you. And then the more upper class ones, probably I've got 14 of those. I suggest probably about 10 of them will have the red background. So I've got to work out a way of getting the red disc on there as well. So again, I've found these little devices here. Now, these might actually get used to create that red background, and that might be an easy way of getting a round circle. I think one of the most difficult things is to paint an exact circle and to get that right. So what I've done in the past is I've actually, well, not tended to use transfers, but I've tended to mark them out on pieces of paper and lay them over the top, just so that I get a fighting chance of getting a circle in the right place. But again, you can help yourself by putting a center point in and then working your way out. So we'll have a look at both techniques and see how we get on. So I'm just going to wait for the shields to dry, put the first coat, put perhaps a coat or two of white on, just so that we get a suitable base to work from, and then I'll be back on the video. Okay, so the white's dried sufficiently for me to carry on to the next stage. As you can see, I've not been too careful with the white. It's just an initial coat, a thin coat. What I'm going to do now, so I would have potentially used a very fine felt fibre tip pen. Actually, I think I've got a finer one than that. Where's it gone? Yeah. So occasionally I've used a really sort of fine pen like this and just marked it out. But the thing about these is it's black and it will bleed through into the colour that we're going to do. And as I've said to you before, red is a little bit unforgiving, shall we say, in terms of colours coming through. So I'm just shaking the red here. What we'll do is we'll put a bit of red on a very small brush. What I'm going to do here is simply put enough of a line on to denote the center line. I'm just going to grab a piece of metal sticks, one block the end here. There we go, that's better. I don't mind it being thin and watery. That's fine. But all I'm trying to do is take a little look at the shields here with my ruler, and you can see that I'm looking to go approximately in the middle of the shield, and it's roughly 12mm along. So what I'm going to do, and I'll do it at a bit of an awkward angle, is we'll put a little bit of a line on the. In fact, I think I'm going to have to do this way round, otherwise we're never going to get anywhere. But I've put a little bit of a line there on the 6mm or halfway point, and obviously I'm going to do the same thing on this other shield here. And again, apologies, I have to do it this way up. And what we've got now is we've obviously got the start of a centre point. So if I do the same thing, turning them around, and go for the same 6mm centre point, this is certainly going to be good enough for us to start working on in terms of using it as a centre point for our shield. Okay, so we're trying to just, and obviously by eye, you know, does that look about right? Yeah, it does to me. I might just double check some of these sometimes. But basically what I'm going to do is go around all of these shields. Obviously these don't need it because they've got the shield bosses on. But the hoplite style shields, I'm going to go around and put these little crosses on all of them. And then we'll go on to the next stage. Thanks. Okay, so I've put my little crosses on. Now it's time to think about what we're going to do though, because as I said, I've got 14 of the hoplite shields. I'm going to concentrate on those for the start. And I've got my little sheet here about some of the designs that I'm considering using. So as I said earlier, we're looking at a little red area surrounded by the bronze, with then the design usually in white in front of it. So for these ones where we're going to do red, I'm going to have to obviously overpaint this and then remark the centre line in white depending on what type of design I choose. However, as I said, I've got 14 and I want to make some of them full size designs on a regular sort of hoplite shield. So I'm just taking my sheet here and trying to work out what might be useful to show you guys, but also what would work well in terms of the designs. So if I do this one here, I'm going to do a Gorgon because that's typically well, very prevalent, shall we say, throughout history, and certainly Greek. I'm less about using obviously Greek city-state symbols because they wouldn't be appropriate. I think I might do the trident that I've got there. I'm going to do the cup, and what I'm probably going to do is, if you remember when I had this other sheet here, would it be the last one I'm looking for? We've got a cup in this design here, so I'm going to probably do the cup in the red, and then I'll do a sort of geometric style one like this. I'll have a think about how we want to do that. But then I'm still, as you can see, quite short here because I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4 shields marked. So I'm thinking something like a wreath might work quite well. And I think if I was going to do a full-sized shield, I'm going to go for the Gorgon full size. This sort of bull's head here, full size. I think things like the trident would work well in a circle, so I've marked that with a C. We said we're going to do that one in a C. This one I think will be a C, so we'll go in the circle. What else do I want to think is a full-size one? Maybe a full-size wreath, because we've got a nice surround here that gives me some thinking about what we can do around the outside. Then we've got this sort of ball type situation going on. So I'm going to see if I've got any other representations that I might be able to use. So I've got this one here. So I think if we add ball to the list, how many are we doing now? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 designs. So we're still a few short, so I think we need to add the bird in. Now, again, I might go full size for that one. 1, 2, 3, 4 full size ones at the moment, and then possibly do the boar full size. That'll be 5 out of the 14, leaving me 9 that I'm going to do in that red circle. So I think that'll work quite well. So we'll try and do this one in a circle. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We need a few more. So I spoke about doing a dolphin type thing earlier on these, because I found this transfer here. I've just measured up these against the shield and they don't work. But I will use those as a, well, I don't know if that's a dolphin or a fish, but we'll put a dolphin and fish motif onto the list I'm making down here. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 down here. The boar is 9, and then the dolphin fish is 10. So we're still 4 short. So I might try, we go back to this section here. We've got this alpha sign, so I think I might mark that one as number 11. And then I still need a few more. So given that I've got a full size boar that I've said we're probably going to do as a full size shield, I'll probably do this one as 12 and make that a short one. Then that leaves me with a few other ones to consider. Now normally a horse is a good motif, and I think if you saw in the book we'd got a horse motif. So I think small scale, if I go inside the circle, that's going to be quite a difficult challenge to do. But maybe we'll just pick out this one and make that number 13, and that will be inside, i.e. with a red background. And then we've got some of these sort of more abstract shapes. I'm not tempted to use the club, because that's the club of which is normally associated with thieves, which wouldn't be appropriate. We're 1 short, so I'm thinking something like this just as a start. But as I said, we don't have to limit ourselves to what's on this sheet. I just thought it was easier to keep that 1 sheet whilst I'm going through it with you guys. We've already got a bird that I said I'm going to use. We've got the boar. Those are sort of hoplite things. I think, you know what? Just take this one as number 14, and I'll see if I can get the representation of this scorpion within the small shield. So I think, just to make life easy for myself, what I might do, I think I said I had, yeah, I'll just put on the ones that aren't full-size shields. We'll just work out what we're doing about putting the red in a circle. So let me put this pen down a second and get my listing back. I want to double check my count. So at the moment I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full-size shields. I think I might, just for convenience, mark around those full-size ones. We're going to do those full-size. I'm thinking just for convenience, because I've got 2 shields per section, as it were. We'll go for full-size there. Full-size dolphin. So that's the bore. That's number 9, full size. Yeah, I think for just for convenience, I'll make 6 full size shields and 8 where we've got the little circle. So the first job will be to get the little circle on here defined. We put this paper over there. So if I return to my trusty, so actually before we lose this, this is sort of implying that if we were to measure this somewhere to scale, let's do this one. That's approximately 22 millimeters. Yeah, 1, 2, and then we've got an inner bit which is approximately 11. So we're talking about something half the size of the shield. So I'll start by marking that out, I think. Although, to be honest, it does look quite small, and I'm just dubious about whether we'll get very far with that. So I'm going to get a slightly darker red from a Reaper Triad, and we'll see what we can do about excuse me, what we think of the sizing once we've had a little go with that. And apologies, I'm going to have to do it sort of back to front for you guys. So given that I said that was about 12, we'd only be, if we went to scale, and I've got that sort of roughly in the 6, we'd be going, yeah, something like this. Maybe up to 1, 2, 3 in, 1, 2, 3 in. So we'd be creating something that ran approximately there to there. So I think I might just do this one as a bit of a trial. Sometimes it's a good idea to let the first cross member dry, but we'll just proceed because we're on the video. And sorry if this is a bit back to front, as it were, for you guys. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, up to there. So now we've got this kind of area here that we're trying to cover. So what I normally do is put more measurement lines in to help me get a better circle here, but I'm just trying to see initially what we think of this as a starting point, and whether that is going to be too small, and whether indeed I've actually got it in the center. I think it was either Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo that, when questioned about proving how good an artist they were, just came out and drew a perfect circle. And if you've ever tried, it is one of those things that's really, really hard to achieve. I seem to spend quite a lot of time overcorrecting whenever I've tried. Now, to be honest, although that might be roughly to scale in terms of the artistic or the art diagram that we saw there, it's looking a little bit weak in terms of the overall effect. So what I'm going to probably do is just try and round these off a little bit, but actually go a bit wider. Okay, so just the time being I'm going to leave that, because what I'm going to do with this guy, which as you can clearly see is not a perfect circle, is I'm going to add in the base coat of bronze around here, just to fill in the edges here where I've not covered the black, and then we'll go and have a little look at what that's like as a balance, and before I do anything else. So I'll give that a moment to dry, come back on, and we'll go from next stage. Thanks. Okay, so I actually ended up doing all 8, just because I felt like we were going along on the right lines, and I want to see what this looks like with the undercoat of the bronze on, just to see what kind of effect we're getting. The reason I'm leaving the black outside is that was quite common to Etruscan shields, and it gets, for the short term as well, it gets us a good area of definition to see how this is going to turn out. And I'm just going to run around this we've created and just see, by going up properly around to the outside of the curvature on the shield, whether that changes my opinion about how well I've done this in a circle. In a minute I'm going to cheat and use one of those transfers, and I thought it would be just interesting to see how close we were by hand, as it were. As I said, I don't normally do this by hand anyway. I normally get like a little tiny bit of paper or something cut out, but I thought I'd just sort of stretch myself a little bit on this one and see what we could come up with. And again, what you've got to remember is someone's going to view this from tabletop distance, and are they going to see the odd little blemish, as it were, or are they going to see, you know, a nicely painted shield design? And do you know what I mean? I think going back to our picture, that's consistent with the sort of overall sizing of it, but I do have real concerns that that's going to be too small for us to convey. Sorry, let me bring this down. So this is what we're comparing against, this sort of general perspective. Is that going to be too small to really contain a decent design and actually show people what it is? So it is the sort of thing where I'm looking at it thinking, you know, we might need to go a bit bolder with the red. But I'm going to carry on putting some of these around and then have a look at all of them. And I might try actually trying a couple of them with a black around the edge and then going over the top. And I think after these two, I'm just going to make these out here a little bit bigger anyway, and if they have slight size variation on the shields, I don't really think that's going to matter too much. I think it just all adds to the variety of it. And to be quite honest, I'm sure historically nobody went around measuring too much, and had there been any sort of prescribed sort of ideals about the shield designs, one would think that you would have had some kind of ancient author write something, and there's a sad lack of that information. So I'm going to go and improve these a little bit more up here and actually take them out a bit wider, and then try and do a similar kind of thing and let you know how I get on.